Coming up today, ending weeks of bipartisan wrangling, Korea's National Assembly approves a bill to overhaul the nation's pension system for public sector employees. South Korea and the United States call on China to play a more constructive role in efforts to denuclearize North Korea, but Beijing claims it's doing all it can. Plus, frustrated with the slower-than-expected economic recovery, Korean manufacturers' business sentiment slumps in the month of May. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Friday, the 29th of May. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thanks as always for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. We start at the National Assembly, where lawmakers have unanimously approved a bill to reform the nation's deficit-ridden pension system for civil servants, with talks going late into the early hours of the morning. The breakthrough came when the ruling party agreed to link the reforms with the implementation of a special law related to last year's Sewol-ho ferry sinking. Our National Assembly correspondent Park Ji-won starts us off.
The National Assembly finally passed a pension reform bill aiming to overhaul the nation's debt-ridden pension system for civil servants at its plenary session at around 4 a.m. Friday morning Korea time. The vote, which passed 233-0 with 13 abstentions, came after marathon overnight negotiations between the rival parties. Under the new legislation, public sector workers will now be required to pay higher pension contributions during their working life, but receive less when they retire. Since lengthy discussions held earlier in the week, the two parties had actually been in agreement on the pension reforms, both the civil servant pension reforms and plans to strengthen the much larger national pension service. However, it was their differences over the Sewol-ho ferry ordinances that required 2 more days of negotiations. The main opposition to Politics Alliance for Democracy had earlier demanded the inclusion of rules to implement the Sewol-ho ferry special law as a package deal with those reforms. They argued that according to the party's May 10th agreement, the focus of the current extraordinary assembly session was to resolve pension issues and improve Sewol-ho ferry ordinances. Bereaved families of the ferry victims and civic groups have raised concerns about the investigation committee's impartiality. The ruling Saenuri party had knocked back the condition until Thursday midnight. But the breakthrough came when the ruling party backed down and agreed to accept the request to revise the National Assembly law so the Assembly can press the government to retouch its contentious ferry ordinances. Both sides have agreed to further discuss the matter in June. With the passage of the Civil Servant Pension Reform Bill, the government will save some $300 billion over the next 70 years. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, along with the Public Pension Reform Bill, the National Assembly has passed a controversial bill that gives it power to request changes to presidential orders. President Park Geun-hye's office responded on Friday, saying the new bill infringes on the judicial right to review legislation as well as executive rights. Senior Press Secretary Kim Sung-woo added the bill could violate the constitutional division of powers and ultimately paralyze administrative authority. He then urged lawmakers to thoroughly review the bill. The main opposition party strongly pushed for this bill's passing, aiming to request revisions to the ordinance concerning an independent probe into the Sewol-ho ferry disaster. The chief nuclear envoys of South Korea and the United States were in Beijing on Thursday to seek ways to resume the long-stalled 6-party talks on North Korea's nuclear weapons program. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
South Korea's envoy Hwang Jung-kook and his American counterpart Sung Kim held separate talks with China's chief nuclear envoy Woo Da-wei on Thursday to demand Beijing play more of a constructive role in pressuring the North to give up its nuclear ambitions. But China rebuffed the attempt to make it do more of the legwork.
North Korean issues are a joint responsibility, and each nation needs to put in more constructive efforts.
China says the six-party members should be more lenient with North Korea, and it urged Seoul and Washington to refrain from holding large-scale joint military drills. China claims to have done its fair share by taking the initiative and responsibility when dealing with Pyongyang.
China is a responsible nation. As one of the leading nations, we will take necessary actions to deal with North Korea's nuclear program.
Also on Thursday, officials from the 5 countries involved in the six-party talks held an informal meeting in Tokyo. During the so-called Northeast Asia Cooperation Dialogue, which North Korea chose not to attend, the officials are known to have shared views on a broad range of issues related to Pyongyang's nuclear and missile development and how to deal with the issue. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
A UN panel says it will look into North Korea's recent claim to have test-fired a submarine-launched ballistic missile. South Korea had sent the Security Council a letter requesting an investigation to determine if the test violated UN sanctions. If that's the case, the UN North Korea Sanctions Committee said it may impose more sanctions on the North. Meanwhile, Pyongyang sent a letter of its own asking for an emergency meeting on the regular joint military exercises between South Korea and the United States. North Korea asked the Council to address the issue twice last year, but no formal discussions have taken place because the Council can only take up the matter if the request is made by one of its members. North Korea is reportedly upgrading its main rocket launch site, raising questions about the possibility of a long-range rocket launch in the autumn. US-based website 38 North says recent satellite imagery of the Sohae satellite launching station shows a new support building and platform are being built, but their purpose is as yet unclear. It suggests North Korea may be building a complex similar to Chinese launch facilities, which includes buildings for assembling and checking launch vehicles. Now, even if the construction is not completed in time, some sources say North Korea will still be able to launch a long-range rocket in October, the 70th anniversary of the Korean Workers' Party, using the facilities that are already there. The Shangri-La Dialogue has kicked off in Singapore. Defence chiefs from 26 countries are attending the annual regional defence talks, discussing matters such as friction in the South China Sea and North Korea's provocations. Our Na Hyung-kyung has the details on Seoul's agenda.
For Korea, the focus is on bilateral talks between the defense chief Han Min-gu and his Japanese counterpart Gen Nakatani. That meeting is expected to take place on Saturday on the sidelines of the Asia Security Summit. It's especially notable because the two chiefs have not sat down face-to-face in more than 4 years due to icy relations stemming from historical differences between Seoul and Tokyo. Officials at Korea's Defense Ministry say the main agenda will be deterring North Korea's nuclear and missile threats, but another matter is bound to come up, the recent revision of the U.S.-Japan defense guideline. It's opened up questions about the possibility of Japan supporting the U.S. military in the case of war in Korea, a sensitive prospect given the colonial history between the two neighbors. So there's lots of pressure on Han and Nakatani to come to a substantive agreement on follow-up measures, such as when and under what circumstances Seoul will permit aid from Tokyo's military and to what extent the two countries will share military information. In regards to the security of the Korean Peninsula, a trilateral meeting between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo, as well as a two-way session between Seoul and Beijing, will address North Korea's recent threats, including its claim to have successfully test-fired a submarine-launched ballistic missile. Na Hyun-kyung, Arirang News.
Japan has released more video clips online that criticize Korea's efforts to promote the use of the name East Sea for the body of water between the two countries. Tokyo's foreign ministry uploaded 6-minute-long promotional videos early this month in 7 more languages, including Chinese, Spanish, German and Arabic, claiming that the name Sea of Japan is the globally established name. The videos posted on YouTube contain the same claim made in clips released last year in Korean, Japanese and English. The two countries have been loggerheads over the name of the sea for decades now. Korean maps name the waters the East Sea, as it is a much older name than Sea of Japan, which Japan created in the early 20th century during its colonial rule of Korea. Business conditions for firms in Korea have soured in the month of May, with a key index dipping for the first time in 4 months. According to the Bank of Korea, the business survey index in the manufacturing sector for this month tumbled to 75, down 5 points on month. The index has been on a steady rise until last month, but experts attribute the downturn in May to slow exports and fewer working days due to a number of national holidays. Now, figures indicating the outlook companies have for the following month also fell by 5 points to 77. A number below 100 means a larger number of firms feel pessimistic. 2 more MERS cases have been confirmed here in Korea, raising the total number of cases now to 9. The Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has announced within the last hour that 2 more patients who were under home quarantine are now confirmed to be carrying the virus. Meanwhile, the patient who skipped quarantine in Korea and flew to China has tested positive for the virus on his primary diagnostic test. These preliminary results, however, do not mean his case is confirmed. Chinese health authorities say the 44-year-old man is currently going through the final confirmation test at a hospital in Beijing, and the results are expected sometime today. Now, with concerns growing, a MERS test kit developed by a Korean research team has come under the spotlight. The tester, which boasts an accuracy rate of 93%, is already widely used in the Middle East, mostly on animals, though the Korean health authorities and researchers are discussing ways to use it to test humans. Now, the US military is known to have not notified Seoul on the arrival of a live anthrax sample that was accidentally shipped to an American air base in Korea because they thought the sample was inactive, or in other words, dead. A Korean government official says that under the US-Korea Status of Forces Agreement, Washington informs health authorities here in Seoul in advance before any toxic substances are brought into the country. But this time they failed to do so as they were unaware the shipment included a live sample of this highly toxic and dangerous bacteria. A senior US Army official said Thursday that he is 99.9% confident that nobody was in danger from the accidental shipment of this live anthrax to these labs, not only in Korea but also 9 US states. A Pentagon official stressed that all the samples have since been destroyed in accordance with appropriate protocols. Now to the latest on the corruption scandal rocking the governing body of the world's most popular sport, and under fire FIFA President Sepp Blatter has condemned the action of individuals for bringing shame and humiliation on football. But Blatter, who's been FIFA's top man since 1998, is showing no signs at all of bowing to the intense international pressure for him to step down. Appearing on Thursday for the first time since several senior FIFA officials were arrested on corruption charges, Blatter said he could not monitor everyone all of the time. Now, Blatter is putting himself forward for a 5th term as FIFA president on Friday. His only opponent, Prince Ali bin Al Hussein of Jordan, has said the scandal proves FIFA needs to be shaking up from the very top right down to the bottom. And UEFA, the European governing body of football, says that if Blatter wins, their 54 members will discuss their next move, with a vocal section saying European teams should boycott the World Cup to force Blatter out. Now, creativity and individuality, these aren't the qualities usually associated with the Korean education system, but the government is trying to change that. For more details on a new programme that's designed to give students a little more freedom in their studies, our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
This is no ordinary school entrance ceremony. Enrolling students take center stage, presenting their hopes, dreams, and expectations for the new year, looking for a fresh educational experience.
Korea's education system is notorious for its grueling study hours and expensive private tutoring. To remedy those issues, the government is trying to foster a learning culture, like this free year program designed to help students explore career options at an early age.
Named after the classic Greek novel, the Odyssey School aims to give students more breathing room and space to nurture their personal talents and interests, which could help launch lifetime careers. For 1 year, students are exempt from midterms and finals, so they can focus on various extracurricular programs and vocational experiences.
I want to be a singer when I grow up. I'm looking forward to the program's mentoring sessions with professional singers and college students.
40 students were selected to participate in the pilot program. The Education Ministry plans to expand the program to all high school freshmen in the coming years.
At first, I was worried that my son wouldn't be able to compete academically or get high scores once he returns to school after the program. But meeting the teachers here and seeing the curriculum, I'm not concerned anymore.
The current system makes students ignore their unique qualities. If the 3-year program works, I think it could be a model case for other education systems in Asia that have similar problems.
A year from now, these students will return to school and fall back into their regular studies. Hopefully by then, they'll have more confidence and a better idea of where they're headed and how to get there. Kim Jeon, Arirang News.
Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broome. Have a wonderful weekend, and thank you, as always, for watching. And we do hope to see you at the same time on Monday. Until then, goodbye.